A thesaurus is one of the most important repositories for word meaning, and in this lecture we'll talk about WordNet, one of the most important thesauri. Thesauri, or ontologies, are used for all sorts of applications: information extraction or retrieval, question answering, lots of bioinformatic applications, machine translations. They play a role all sorts of places. One of the most commonly used ones, WordNet, is a hierarchically organized lexical database. It's an online thesaurus, but also it has some aspects of a dictionary. And WordNet itself is in English, but there's lots of other languages that are either available or under development. And in WordNet itself, we have about over 100,000 nouns and over 10,000 verbs, and also adjectives and adverbs. And for each of those, we're going to have definitions and ontological relations. So, for example, take the word bass or base in WordNet. We have nouns and we also have verbs. So here's a list of nouns, each of the senses, and adjectives. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 senses of bass or base in WordNet. So sea bass or freshwater bass or bass voice or basso and so on. And in WordNet, a sense is defined by what's called a synset or synonym set. That's the set of near synonym similar words that instantiates a sense or a concept. And also we have a gloss. So for example, take chump as a noun. We have the gloss, a person who is gullible and easy to take advantage of. And this sense of chump is shared by 9 words. So we have chump 1 and fool 2, so the second sense of fool, and the 9th sense of the word mark, and the first sense of the word fall guy, and so on. So each of these senses has this same gloss. Now, it's not every sense of those words. So for example, gull has another sense, sense 2, which is a kind of aquatic bird. So a synset is a set of near synonyms, meaning particular senses of words that all have a similar meaning. Now here's the WordNet hypernym hierarchy for base. Or bass. This is one sense of bass, an adult male singer with the lowest voice. And you see that a bass is a kind of singer, which is a kind of musician, which is a kind of performer, a kind of person, a kind of organism, all the way up to physical entity and entity. So the hypernym hierarchy goes all the way to the top. Now, WordNet has a lot of relations. We've talked about relations before. So we have hypernyms and hyponyms, but WordNet also has relationships like member. So the relation has member. So for example, a group like faculty has members like professors. It has instances. We talked about instances. So the relationship between composers in general and the one composer, Bach, or the one composer, Johann Sebastian Bach. Of course, there's more than one Bach. And then we have meronyms and holonyms, so part-whole relationships between individuals. So a table has a part, which is a leg, and a course has a part, which is a meal, and so on. So those are the relationships between parts and whole. So lots of these relationships occur in WordNet, and antonymy as well. Now you can look on the web for WordNet. Here it is. So we can look for the word bass or bass. And sure enough, there it is. There's our senses of bass, and we can click on one of them. Let's click on one of the fish. There we go. And now we can ask for the whole set of inherited hypernyms. And there's a bass is a kind of, or bass, excuse me, is a kind of freshwater fish, a kind of seafood, a kind of food, all the way up again, all the way up down here to entity at the bottom. So here's the whole hypernym or superordinate hierarchy. Now there are standard libraries for accessing WordNet. There are Python libraries and there are Java libraries, and we've given you some pointers here. Another important thesaurus or ontology is MESH, the Medical Subject Headings Thesaurus from the National Library of Medicine. So this has almost a couple 100,000 entries corresponding to a lot of headings. So here's one, hemoglobin, and it has a set of what are called entry terms, hemoglobin, ferrous hemoglobin, and I don't even know how to pronounce that word. And these are the correspondence to the syn sets in WordNet. This is the set of synonyms for defining hemoglobins. And then we have a gloss as well. So here's the mesh hierarchy. Here are the top 16 top level categories. So we might want to look inside one of them, let's say chemicals and drugs, and inside those we might want to look inside amino acids, and if we do that, we could look inside proteins, and there's hemoglobins. So there's the hierarchy for mesh. And this ontology is used to provide synonyms, or what are called entry terms in the mesh terminology, provide hypernyms from the hierarchy, just like WordNet. And mesh is used for indexing journal articles in the National Library of Medicine's bibliographic database, Medline PubMed, where there's 20 million journal articles, where the articles are hand-assigned 10 or 20 mesh terms. So a useful ontology. So we've seen WordNet and mesh, two very commonly used thesauri or ontologies, an important place to get representations of word meaning and word relations like hyponymy and synonymy.